Hi, it's Rich Hoffman here. So one way that I support any administration is actions like we're taking against Venezuela and seizing Maduro there for all the drug trafficking. Anytime the United States wants to go take out some drug traffickers, I'm great with it. International law, the whole argument about this criminal conspiracy that uses the governments of the world to hide their crimes, such as the arrangement that we have in Mexico. Whenever you go and just take out the drug cartels, because the poisoning of the human mind anywhere in the world where it occurs, I'm good with it. I think it's great. But this whole Maduro thing is kind of the surface of a greater strategy, and I don't really hear anybody talking about what that strategy is, to the extent that it's smart policy. But the way that the liberal order has been has their anger irritated on this issue, I think reveals a whole lot bad that's going on that we need to talk about. The way that this international order of a criminal conspiracy and the politicians that benefit from it, the Chuck Schumers of the world that have benefited a lot from this liberal world order, as terror provokes political action, such as keeping China from invading Taiwan, or the debate over Russia invading Ukraine, and or how all those elements are used to inspire the political order that these politicians then come in and control in their own way. What the Trump administration did with taking out Maduro the way that it occurred, and just showing off the military ability to surgically go into a hotbed of contentious fire and be very successful at it, was more than just the act of making the arrest. It was a show off of the capability. And when you're negotiating with Russia on the issue with the challenges of Ukraine, or pushing Iran where you need to go, inspiring the continued negotiations of peace in the Middle East, or keeping China from hitting the throttle on Taiwan, this was a very important move to make. And I think it more than showed what the Trump administration is willing to do in order to get leverage on all those negotiations. So this international law that everybody's hiding behind, this UN charter, is worthless. It always was, and all it's ever done is inspire tyrants to rise up in the vacuum of that power behind the UN charters and international law concept, and thrive as terrorist businesses. So a lot of the terror groups that exist out there exist because there's a vacuum of power and control that in the bureaucracy of the United Nations, they thrive. And that's the case everywhere where these kind of tyrants have existed. And when they are created, the Maduros of the world are created through election fraud. Again, the voting machines, when you go back to the whole Tina Peters issue in the United States, questioning the electronic machines and whether they could rig elections or not. And you have this corporate conspiracy to throw her in jail, with Democrats who have conspired to do it, and she's still in jail just for questioning the election and pointing out something was obvious, when the election fraud and the same players were involved in the theft of at least 2 elections in Venezuela in order to keep Maduro in power. And that's a major problem, that those elections were rigged the way they were, and that he was able to stay as kind of a symbol of power and reside over everybody in a way that they didn't pick as a voting group. So a major problem there that this exposes in ways that are very productive going forward. Because if you want to get down to the whole election fraud story, and here in the United States, there's too many people with their hands in the cookie jar that benefit from election fraud, and they won't admit to it. Then you go out and you get somebody, strip them from power, put them on the stand, and get them to tell everybody in the world what they need to know without it being directly related to United States business. Now, doing a perp walk of some ridiculous tyrant who did all kinds of bad things to stay in power in Venezuela and really held back people there in terrible ways, it's not very effective in my book, because you should be perp walking people from the Democrat Party here in the United States for crimes that are even worse than what Maduro has done. But when it's outside the United States, the way Venezuela is, and it's obvious that something needs to happen there, and you need to send a message to all the drug dealers in the world who have been hiding kind of behind the Maduros of the world. I think the message to Mexico that is currently run by drug cartels, not an official government. I think you could say that about everybody in the world, actually, especially United Nations members. So if you're really trying to get to the gist of the bad guys in the world, you're not going to deal with the governments, because the governments are just fronts for the criminal behavior that's going on in the background. The way all mobsters have worked. They're just mobsters on a larger scale. You're not going to get anywhere with them playing nice. But when you can pick a target that is outside the normal system, it's not in your immediate backyard, you can then have analysis about election fraud that we need to have as a society. Everybody needs to understand how a lot of these elections get rigged, whether it's in Russia, whether it's in China, whether it's in Venezuela, whether it's in Mexico, wherever people don't have representation. If you're truly trying to fight for that kind of world, then that's what you need to be doing, and that's why it's important to go get Maduro. There's nobody else in the world capable of bringing justice to people. And so is that an American first concept, to go and raid other countries and impose your will on them? I think you do, because you're either going to go to them or they're going to come to you. And what's been happening is our culture has been eroded away by these drug cartels, and they gain power and leverage by poisoning our society. And you either go to them and beat them on their turf that they reside at, or they're going to come to your back door and they'll cut off heads of people who are narcs and stick them on fence posts so to warn off people from bringing justice to their doorstep. The fight's going to be the fight no matter where you have it. So I'd rather see us going to them than them coming to us, as they have for many, many decades now. So I'm all about the Maduro raid and taking over Venezuela and managing the country from within. Because we built the oil infrastructure, and people will say, well, it's all about oil and Trump's trying to boost the economy. Well, that's another layer to the economic viability of this invasion. The first thing is you bust drug guys, you bust people who are definitely bad. The second thing is it's an economic issue with oil. And the United States built that infrastructure. Socialism took it over and ruined the investment we made into it. And a lot of people, especially in Venezuela, had their economy stifled because that infrastructure that America built to have an oil economy was interrupted by the socialist mechanisms. So behind all these liberals in this decry of the international order being violated by some United Nations charter is this anxiety over the controls of socialism and how it's imposed around the world, and how the state takes control of the means of production. And what the United States essentially is going to do here by managing Venezuela is taking away from socialism the means of production and putting it back in the hands of the people who it was intended for, and to have an economic path forward that isn't controlled by centralized authority. And that's what they're really upset about. And that's okay. Let them be upset, because socialism needs to be destroyed wherever it's at. And the next place that needs to happen is the United States needs to take control of Cuba and drive out the remnants of that tyrannical machine there, and all the backdoor efforts they had to prop up Venezuela need to knock out all these third world countries and turn them into states for the United States, rather than just dance around the drain on the whole thing. Let's just go down and deal with it directly. So I'm highly supportive of everything that's happened with the whole Venezuela situation, and I would like to see perp walks, not just for criminal conspirators like Maduro, but I think people who participate in election fraud here in the United States and conspiracy against a free running government, and the way that the previous Trump administration had been targeted for a coup. Everybody involved in that needs to have the same kind of perp walk that we did with Maduro. And you have to send a message to justice. But in the short term, for the negotiations that are on the table for global politics and all the corners of the world where they're happening, there's nothing like showing that the United States can go into even a well-defended area and take a guy out of his shelter in the middle of the night and completely eradicate his defenses on national television. So pretty effective, and was a really good way to show kind of what the United States can do when it decides to. And anybody else who gets in the way going forward, it's a fair warning to change the course of action while they still can. But anytime the Trump administration wants to go after a bunch of criminal conspirators in the drug trade, I'm 100% for it. If they want someone to help them out, they always call me up. But there's a lot of good people out there who are perfectly capable of doing these things, and that capability was on full display in the Maduro raid and his arrest and transfer to New York courts to be prosecuted under the laws for which he has moved against the United States in audacious ways, and now it's time for punishment. And it's good to see. Happy to see it. Anyway, Rich Hoffman here. Share, subscribe, make tomorrow a better day. If you haven't read my book, The Gunfighter's Guide to Business, I think you'll love it. Anyway, have a good day. See you later.